Hello and welcome back. This is Ramy Romani, your iFit guide, and we are here at the Valley of the Kings, Luxor, Egypt, on top of the world, on top of the dead world this is. By the end of this workout, we would go all the way into the Valley of the Kings, and I'll tell you the story of how all this came to be. Let's go. Right underneath me is the Valley of the Kings, all around, with tourists from all over the world visiting this place and its magnificence. Valley of the Kings is most famous by King Tut's tomb, which is down there. Hopefully we get to go there at some point. And it's famous for all the New Kingdom's tombs. Most of the New Kingdom kings' tombs are buried here. In comparison to what the Old Kingdom was, where they chose pyramids, built pyramids so they can put their bodies in them, the New Kingdom, on the other hand, stopped using pyramids and instead chose the Valley of the Kings to be their pyramid because of this right there. This for them was a good enough pyramid, and all of the mummies can be buried within. All of the tombs can be within this main pyramid, which helps with a couple of things. First, tomb raiding. Ancient Egypt had a massive tomb raiding problem. All the pyramids were the most obvious places to be instantly a place for treasure. Come here, I have treasure, come steal everything. And by the time the Middle Kingdom came and the New Kingdom came, they realized that having a pyramid is a really bad idea if you want to avoid tomb raiding and if you want to keep your mummy lasting forever. So they decided to come here at the Valley of the Kings in the ancient city of Thebes, which was the capital at the time. And if you notice, the capital of Egypt had moved so far from Cairo and Memphis all the way down here to Luxor. Now that's nearly 500 miles away. And the reason is what happened in between. What happened between the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. Specifically, the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom. Between that time, Egypt got invaded. Invaded by a very strong enemy. And their name was the Hyksos. The Hyksos invaded Egypt and took over, and there were so many stories about the Hyksos and how terrible and mean they were to Egyptians. They would go in, destroy places, make it unlivable for all the Egyptians, and Egyptians hated it. But not all of Egypt was invaded, only the northern part. And all the way in the south was still a southern Egyptian king who wasn't that strong, and all the influence was for the Hyksos. And there are letters that we found that are from the Hyksos king all the way to the king of the south, the Egyptian king of the south, when Egypt was split into two. The Hyksos king would send letters telling the king of the south, hey, calm down your hippos, I can hear them, they're making too much noise. Of course, hippos can't make enough noise to travel 500 miles to the north. But he's mainly talking about people being angry, people being upset, protests, demeaning the Egyptians and telling them that they will never take it back and the Hyksos will always be there. And you have to understand that this, even though in our history now when we talk back about it, it's nothing, it's like a dot in the whole historical map. But the Hyksos were there in Egypt for nearly 100 years. 100 years means that people lived and died all the way through their life when Egypt was invaded. And then the king of the south decided to take his land back, to go fight the Hyksos and bring back his land. The Hyksos had one great advantage over the Egyptians at the time. They had horses, they had chariots. The Egyptians didn't have chariots yet. The first southern king that attempts to go and get Egypt back from the Hyksos has a mummy today in the Egyptian Museum. His name is Thutmose. Thutmose has a mummy that is not in a great shape. You go look at Thutmose's mummy and there's an axe mark right in its head, right here. opened. The skull is open in the two. He lost the war against the Hyksos. His brother was young at the time, Thutmose. Thutmose decided that he wasn't just going to revenge his brother, he's going to bring Egypt back to the Egyptians. But he was smarter. He decided to send spies to learn how to make all the war crafts that the Hyksos had. He brought it back, engineered an even better design, and took it to war. Thutmose took it to war, took all the tools that he invented, he engineered that were stronger and better, and the Egyptians were ready and done with the Hyksos. They went from the south all the way to the north. They attacked the Hyksos in the northern land, and the story is known at the time. Thutmose won so strongly, and it's written in the walls. He defeated the Hyksos and their king. He had the king's head in his hand. There's a depiction on the wall where Thutmose is standing with the head of the king in his hand and a smiter on the other hand. And it's known in the story that he followed the Hyksos, got them out while they ran away all the way to more east than the Israel and Palestines of today. Thutmose won the war, and with Thutmose started the new kingdom of Egypt. Thutmose was the first king to be buried in the Valley of the Kings. This was the place of their choice. He was the 18th dynasty of Egypt. The 18th dynasty that ended with King Tut and two others. So 18th dynasty lasted so long, it was one of the strongest dynasties in ancient Egypt. Queen Hatshepsut was a part of the 18th dynasty. It's all that same family from Thutmose's descendants. The guy that freed Egypt from the Hyksos and brought the land back home and started the new kingdom. With it, he started the Valley of the Kings. Now, the Valley of the Kings became that place where every king comes into rule. He instantly starts digging his own tomb in here, because a tomb is a great symbol for Egyptians. It's not where people die, it's where people live forever. And that's exactly what a word tomb is in Egyptian. It's per hachet. Per hachet means the house of eternity. They started digging their tombs here. Thutmose has his, all the way to King Tut, who has his. Hatshepsut had one here that was in ruins because of another king that came back to attack her stepson, Thutmose III. But after all these problems and after bringing back Egypt, the Egyptians here started having a different problem. The problem of tomb raiding. Once Valley of the Kings started, everyone was proud, and during Thutmose's time everyone was proud. And then the tomb raiding started. And it was so much that on the record, we've seen records of tomb raiders coming in and stealing what's inside the tomb a couple of days after the tomb has been sealed and after the king has been buried in it. They worked so hard to make sure that the outside of the tombs are not obvious. It wasn't like today where you can look around and see tombs. Every tomb was sealed and covered that looks like it's a part of the mountain. But of course, the tomb raiders were always an inside job. A high priest or a worker who knows exactly where the tomb is. Watch out, your step gets really steep here. Okay, watch your step while we descend into the heart of the Valley of the Kings. So here we are in the heart of the valley where all the tombs are and all the tourists are from all over the world. The first tomb that you would see right in front of you is the most famous tomb in the Valley of the Kings, and arguably the most famous tomb in the world. The tomb of King Tut. Right here, with all the stories of the curses that comes to it that have never been proven untrue. It was known that when this tomb was found by Howard Carter and Lord Carnarvon, a lot of moves happened that shows the curse. Multiple people that opened that tomb for the first time died. There's a story about Howard Carter's bird, who he loved so much. The day he opened the tomb, he went back and someone came running at him, yelling, saying, one of his workers said, Mr. Carter, there's big noise, there's a screaming child noise coming from your room, coming from your apartment. Howard Carter didn't have children in his apartment. He went back running and he discovered that the screaming child noise was the noise of a cobra biting his bird and killing it. The same day he opened King Tut's tomb. So many people had so many problems that worked on that mission. Lord Carnarvon House himself, back in England, was set on fire on the day of the opening of King Tut's tomb. Even in modern times, when they tried to move King Tut's mummy outside of the tomb to send it to the museum, which is part of the reason why King Tut's mummy is actually still inside of his tomb. They tried to move it outside and take it to the museum with a CT scan machine to scan it and make sure they're doing all their work right. They brought the CT scan here, and on a day like a normal day that shouldn't have been a problem, the biggest sandstorm came up and stopped them from working. They had to wait 3 days, and after 3 days they got ready. They went back in with the CT scan machine into the tomb, and all the power in all of the city went off. Everywhere, darkness. So most people here, most Egyptians here, do believe in the Pharaoh's curse. Now, whether it's true or not, I can't help you with that. But as a scientist, there is a chemical explanation to the curses of the mummies and the curses of King Tut, especially King Tut. Think about a tomb with a dead person inside, with living organisms, with biological material inside that tomb for the longest time, closed, not meeting any air. That longest time could include 3,000 years of history. And then on one day, a human comes in and opens that box after the bacteria have been growing, after everything have been growing, and then it mixes with oxygen for the first time, and then it becomes a poisonous gas. That could explain the curse of the pharaohs. Not only King Tut's tomb caused problems to people when they first opened it, multiple places was like that. The other explanation, which would be genius from the ancient Egyptians, and I wouldn't doubt it, is if they specifically planted some sort of a chemical gas in there, so when you open up and mix it up with the tomb for the first time with the air, it finally ends up producing a poisonous gas and kills people. No one knows, but all we know is every time someone opens a new tomb, something happens to him. When everyone comes anywhere close to King Tut's tomb, he's dead. So is there a curse for the pharaohs? You tell me. And in the Valley of the Kings, between all the tombs, there's something extremely important. The hope of finding a new tomb. We all know that back in the ancient Egyptian times, I mean, look at that tent right there. There are archaeologists working tirelessly day and night to find the next King Tut's tomb. Back at the time, if you think about this valley, and if you think of all the tombs that are sealed and locked down in halls, and make sure none of them are seen ever again, there was someone out there that probably mapped the Valley of the Kings and knew which hall was where, which tomb was where. And that someone had the keys to the valley. Now the problem here, or the hope really, is that that piece of papyrus that has every single tomb in it, listed where it exactly is, tombs that we haven't found yet, is somewhere somewhere that we could find one day, which will solve the mystery of the Valley of the Kings and will show us exactly where those tombs are. That's why these archaeologists are working tirelessly, because of one reason. They want to find those tombs. Right now, they're working on trying to find one very important tomb, the tomb of Queen Nefertiti. Queen Nefertiti is King Tut's mother. If you remember, in recent times, someone found a secret door, or what he claimed to be a secret door, inside King Tut's tomb. He took high-resolution images of the tomb, and there was a door-looking line. That door-looking line, he believes, was a door to another tomb behind King Tut's tomb. That other tomb, they believe, could be his mother's. King Tut's mother. King Tut's mother has a secret that we don't know of yet, of how the country fell apart, how the country was divided by her husband, and how King Tut himself could have brought it back together. Now, one of my favorite tombs here is the tomb of Thutmose III. You remember the story of Thutmose III. When Queen Hatshepsut built her temple, the temple we just saw together, when she built her temple and she had her might and she ruled the country, her stepson that was supposed to be the king of Egypt came back and fought her and brought his throne back. And that is where the tomb is, all the way up in the cliff. Now, I want you to take a little peek, and don't make a fuss about it, next to us. I'm gonna walk close to this wall, and I want to show you some of the little pieces of clues that we end up finding on the right-hand side. All these little pieces are pieces of ostraka, pottery pots that date back to 3,000 years ago. This guy right there is one of our best archaeologist friends. He sits here and takes all these puzzle pieces, like Lego pieces, and tries to build the pots back together. That's his life. He does it every day. Now watch out. This means you're not allowed in there. So just hop on top of the line. All these pots have been gathered from the ground. You know, there's something about an archaeologist. They say you can find out who's an archaeologist just by looking at them walking. An archaeologist always looks down at their feet while they're walking. They're always looking for something on the ground. It's a problem that we have. All the way at the end of this route in the valley, in a very special spot, of course, Thutmose III was a very strong king, is his tomb. And Thutmose III's tomb was extremely important for us now because of what it's made of. Thutmose III's tomb didn't start digging his own tomb till he came back from the war and took the land back from Hatshepsut. And made sure he erased her memory from existence. Which means it took a while. It took a while before he started digging his own tomb. So his tomb was never actually finished completely. For him, not so great of news, but for us, it's great news. They trust me. I'm not gonna do anything bad. Watch your steps. This is a big hike into the heart of the mountain and King Thutmose III's tomb. Thutmose III's tomb is the only tomb in the valley that takes a hike to get to up steps like that. He made it so no one could do to him what he himself did to Hatshepsut. Erase her from memory. He made it so high up take a deep breath. Once you're up all these stairs, I'll take a sip of water, or you take a sip of water for you too. I always love coming up here. It's very calm. After all the craziness down in the valley with tourists from all over the world. This is it. Tomb number 34, 18th dynasty, Thutmose III. This is the tomb of Thutmose III. This is the unfinished tomb of Thutmose III. This is the reason why today we know exactly how to build an ancient Egyptian tomb. It's because of this place. We could see the multiple steps that go on here. How they dig in the wall. Similar to this. First, that's the first step. Make the wall look like that, as rough as that. Second step, make it as smooth as possible, chipping away as smooth as possible. Third step, putting plaster all the way around the tomb. Fourth step is going in with a red marker, the famous red marker from King Thutmose III tomb, and writing every piece of hieroglyph down, making sure they're revised and revised over and over again, making sure there are no mistakes in there. And then they start etching it, making it perfect, drawing all the drawings, all the depictions, and finally coloring it and closing the tomb down and burying the king over there. Now, there's always a sarcophagus that is made from one piece inside those tombs, and most of the time that piece is bigger than the tomb itself, bigger than the door of the tomb itself, and we still today don't have an explanation to that. We don't know how they managed to bring all these massive sarcophagi inside the tombs through their doors. This was it. You did a great job. Well done, well done, well done. Thank you so much for joining me on this beautiful Valley of the Kings tour. And I hope you enjoyed the history of how Egypt came back together after an invasion that the Egyptians hated. Next, we're going to go to the place you want to go to, the tomb of King Tut. I personally can't wait. I love it there. So let's go. I'm Ramy Romany. I'm your iFit guide. Stick around. You're going to love King Tut next.